Dwight Kurt Shrute III. A man, sure. An enigma, perhaps. Seed of treacherous, vile Nazis, more likely than you may think. Now I know what the lesser among you are thinking. Another Office fan theory video? That show ended ages ago. Move on, you absolute dork. To those people I say, get wrecked. Like any good, basic, white whatever, I've watched The Office about 500 million times. And in my depressive, life-wasting endeavors, I've happened upon a few unsavory details about our old pal Dwight Shrute. Lovable goof, frequent annoyance, comedic anchor of the show. However you view this character, it is plain to see that his personal life and much of his family history is best described as bizarre. Dwight hosts obvious Dutch and German lineage, most frequently displayed through his pseudo-Amish, Pennsylvania Dutch-ish upbringing. From his cousin Moe's, his farm lifestyle, Pennsylvania Dutch Christmas, which we'll come back to, and various oral traditions he shares throughout the show, the character is a bizarre indeed blend of Dutch and German history. However, being simply of German heritage doesn't make you a Nazi. Now that's absolutely preposterous, except in this case because his German relatives also happen to be Nazis. In fact, I'll give you the best bits of evidence first. Exhibit A, Dwight's grandpa Mannheim.
My grandpa Mannheim is 103 and still puttering around down in Argentina. I tried to go visit him once, but my travel visa was protested by the Shoah Foundation.
His grandpa Mannheim, very German, living in Argentina. Odd. Why would an elderly German man be living in Argentina? Well, if you ain't a big history buff, a lot of Nazi officials and such fled from Germany at the end of World War II to escape from prosecution for their heinous crimes. They left through these things called rat lines, mostly to South America, most notably Argentina. Now you probably knew that, but maybe you're still saying, that doesn't mean he was a Nazi. He could just happen to live there. Okay, alright. But what about...
I tried to go visit him once, but my travel visa was protested by the Shoah Foundation.
And I'm sure you knew this as well, but the Shoah Foundation, or USC Shoah Foundation, is a non-profit organization founded by director Steven Spielberg that primarily educates people about the Holocaust. Now, why would the Shoah Foundation protest Dwight's travel visa to visit his grandpa Mannheim? Because Grandpa Mannheim was a filthy Nazi. Exhibit 2, possibly a different grandpa, possibly still Mannheim, participated in World War II.
I come from a long line of fighters. My maternal grandfather was the toughest guy I ever knew. World War II veteran. Killed 20 men, then spent the rest of the war in an Allied prison camp.
Now, assuming you didn't think any of Dwight's relatives were scumbags, halfway through that statement there, you might have naively assumed his grandfather was some kind of hero, perhaps slaying 50 enemies of freedom during an epic battle in the biggest war of all time. But by the end of the statement, you would be a fool to think that. Because if that were the case, why would he spend the remainder of the war in an Allied prison camp? I doubt he was one of the guards. Exhibit C, another grandfather.
Dwight's grandfather
was a member of the Bund, which is not technically the same thing as the Nazi Party. So...
I was going to say it was a tax evader.
Oh.
Just for the people that missed that day, the Bund, which is not technically the same thing as the Nazi Party, and also known as the German-American Bund, or the German-American Federation, was a GD Nazi fan club for Americans in the mid-1930s. The Bund was for American citizens of German descent, and its main goal was to promote a favorable view of Nazi Germany. Now, we know at least one of his grandfathers fought in World War II, presumably for the Nazis, and it's safe to say he was at least European. Now, I don't know how he was able to get out of an Allied prison camp and get to another country safely, but I'm just going to assume this is Grandpa Mannheim. The show has enough inconsistencies, so let's try to just keep things stable. That being said, if members of the Bund were German Americans in the US at the time, I'm gonna go ahead and say that that means both of Dwight's paternal grandfathers were Nazis. I mean, sure.
Member of the Bund, which is not technically the same thing as the Nazi Party.
But let's get real. The only reason these Bund nerds weren't full-fledged Nazis was because they weren't in Germany at the time. They wanted to bring that nonsense to the US. At this point, I'm assuming both sides of Dwight's family are riddled with Nazi parasites. The rest being these weird semi-Amish folk who undoubtedly gave the Nazis a place to stay when they eventually came to America. If you're not quite there yet, I can provide a few more subtle examples, such as this little comparison.
Once upon a time, we were natural enemies, but we've overcome our differences, much like Germany and Italy in World War.
This hot take.
Typical American arrogance that got us involved in a war we never should have been in. World War II.
Oh, and here's an interesting insight.
I don't understand why Michael is wasting his time with Spanish. I have it on very good authority that within 20 years, everyone will be speaking German. Or a Chinese-German hybrid.
Like, who told him that? Who's he hanging out with? Why would that even happen? Who would want it to happen? I mean, we know, outside of his family, Dwight associates with all kinds of insane human beings. Which one is fantasizing about the whole world speaking German? There's also whatever this is about.
Yes. Oh, what a beautiful child. Prominent forehead, short arms, tiny nose. You will lead millions. Willingly, or as slaves.
Anyway, who could forget the classic Pennsylvania Dutch Christmas?
Boy, often portrayed in colorful pantaloons and blackface.
Come on. We don't blindly stick to every outmoded aspect of our traditions.
Oops. Netflix and Peacock edited this part out, so I'm going to try to stick to the program, but you get the picture. Now, being clueless and racist isn't technically the same thing as the Nazi Party. However, adding in the family history, it isn't looking good. Of course, you've also got Dwight's obsession with authority, dreaming of possessing it, while simultaneously idolizing those he presumes to have it. His casual fandom of other dictators.
And the Piranha's a rescue.
And the desk.
The desk is a replica of Uday Hussein's desk. I saw a picture in
And his vile treatment of Stanley in the workplace.
Dwight, you do not learn, do you? For a threat to be credible, you have...
Holy
No, you didn't. I'm sick of you and your...
Now I'm going to stop right there before anyone starts to take this too seriously. I mean, Dwight and Stanley are secretly friends, you know, conspiring against Jim to get free meatballs.
What's a haul?
32 meatballs.
Good day.
That idiot's been feeding us for a week.
We'll never have to buy meatballs again.
Anyhow, Dwight Shrute is just a character. He is by no means the hero of the show, And even if his Nazi ties were a predominant part of the character, which they're not, I think it's clear that Dwight Shrute is never meant as a person that we should try to emulate. He is an ample source of life lessons, albeit through his failures, and his bizarre personality and lifestyle are part of what make him such a great comedic character. But he is most obviously the jerk-off of the show 99% of the time. I understand that a great deal of Dwight's backstory was actually improvised by Rainn Wilson, if I'm not mistaken, and I've got to hand it to him. The wild takes on German ancestry were a fun enough side note to the show that I decided to make an entire video about it. Ultimately, whether he's a Nazi or just related to a few, Dwight does manage to grow as a character. You even kind of like him by the last couple of episodes. He gets the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl he was in love with, and he has a seemingly new respect and love for his co-workers. Alright y'all, if you liked the video, let me know. Maybe I'll do another one. This was my first video of this nature, so give me some feedback. That being said, I do have a podcast that can be found on my page and in the description to this episode. Please subscribe if you like the content, and I'll see you next time.